Hey Ramblers! Today's episode is brought to you by Fangoria. Since 1979, Fangoria has been the authority in the world of contemporary horror. As the only sanctuary for horror aficionados in its early days, it has now grown into an empire that expands beyond its celebrated magazine. From t-shirts, coffee mugs, beanies, enamel pins, there's something for every horror fanatic in your world, even if it's you. So head on over to shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or use code pencil and paper productions at checkout to get 20% off your first order or magazine subscription. Yes, it is a mouthful, which is why there are links in the show notes down below. That's shop.fangoria.com/pencil and paper productions or code pencil and paper productions at checkout for 20% off. Fangoria, first in fright since 1979.
Buy it or we'll tear your soul apart.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Horror Ramblings podcast. That show that's about horror. You guys, you should know this by now. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, sometimes we do stray a little away from it. I mean, we did do an episode a while back where I feel like we were talking about comic book movies more than anything. So, I don't know. Maybe we should just have the Ramblers podcast where we just talk about all kinds of crazy shit. I don't know. I don't even know where we would have the time.
Right.
We're always busy with something. But, you know, I'm going to weird out all of our fans real quick, and I'm going to weird you out too, probably.
Okay.
Something weird happened over the weekend. What was it? Last weekend?
Mm-hmm.
Weekend before? I was there for Steven's first time.
It was.
And what I mean by that, before everybody's like, what the hell are we listening to? The Horror Ramblers got to be among the horror hounds at the HorrorHound Film Festival. Steven's first time going. I've been there a few times, and I know we're going to talk about that a little bit today, but before we get deep into that conversation, I want to bring up some stuff, and I'm sure you might have a news article or two, but even before we do that, first impressions of HorrorHound. Just give me a quick little tidbit on how you felt about it.
A much larger con than I've been to when it comes to horror related. Because I've only been to really one or two. Well, let me rephrase that. I've technically been to one, but it's been in several different locations. And I've been to that one several times. And I'm not comparing it to other non-horror related cons because I feel like each con has their own styles and audiences. I can't imagine that comic con and horror cons are identical in some ways, if you know what I mean. They are, but they're not.
Yeah.
Different audiences, you know, not the same types of people. So,
right.
But overall, it was a positive experience. I'll leave it at that for right now.
I know we kind of looked at it a little different this time going around because we had press passes, and that's a whole thing I want to kind of get into as well. But before we do all of that, I'm going to start off the news today with something.
Okay.
Quite a surprise, and I'm actually happy about it. Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey 2 has opened to very positive reviews. It's gotten a fresh rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It had a 100% score when it started, 79% audience score, but apparently this film has done what the first one needed to do. Be aware of itself. Be aware that it is a cheesy gimmick and embrace that sort of B-movie aesthetic. And apparently it's done that, and apparently it has it's worked out rather well for them. And I think we were right in our assumptions that the first film was just setting the groundwork for this. And no, I am very happy about it. I haven't gotten the chance to see it yet. I guess there are over 40 deaths in this film.
Wow.
40 of them. And apparently, from what my understanding is, it's not just them going around just stabbing people. It's actually them having creative kills. There's a few times, I guess, where the CGI is a little cheesy, but I don't know what it is. I'm happy about it. And I watched somebody, they kind of reviewed it, and they said a lot of the characters remind you of slashers that exist. I guess Winnie the Pooh is very much like Leatherface to a degree.
Okay.
Tigger, just like I thought, and just like I showed you in the one clip that I sent you. Tigger is very Freddy Krueger-esque, and Owl is a lot like Pinhead.
Okay.
I guess Piglet sort of fits into like a cross between Jason and Leatherface.
Okay.
So, I mean, there's a bunch of goodies in it, and I don't know. I'm excited, and they're already setting up a sequel, and I guess they're going to introduce the Heffalumps and Woozles from Winnie the Pooh.
Mm-hmm.
Which fun fact, if you go back and you watch the Winnie the Pooh movie that has the song about Heffalumps and Woozles in it, that probably scarred kids back in the day.
Sure.
In particular, there's a honey pot in that song that has legs, and it has like the real skinny legs with the real big feet, the real long feet, you know? Mm-hmm. And it's walking, and the lid of it opens, and it laughs, but it's like this gurgly laugh. And I'm sorry, but if I was a little kid watching that, I feel like that would be nightmare fuel.
Sure.
So, yeah, Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, definitely think I'm going to be checking it out. I also was looking at reviews for the new Godzilla movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen it or if you've...
Come on.
I was going to say, I figured you did. I heard... This is what I heard about it, and maybe you can give me a yay or nay on this. A lot of people are trying to compare it to -1, and what I heard, and this is what I heard, and this is why I bring this up to you. A lot of people that I've watched review it, they said, if you try to compare this movie to -1, then you're not going to enjoy it. They said this movie is like a huge Saturday morning cartoon come to life mixed with a wrestling match. And it is a spectacle to see. Like, that's what I've heard about it. And the people that I've heard reviews from, they've enjoyed it. They enjoyed all the monster goodness. And I know we've touched on it before. It seems like we're doing with Godzilla here in the United States what Japan did with it, back in the early days, where Godzilla became sort of like a superhero type character. Mm-hmm. But what did you think of the movie? From what I've seen of it, it looks like it was entertaining as hell.
It's exactly what I expected it to be, because after we saw that trailer the very first time, I know that we'd kind of mentioned that through text, that when we first saw it, we were like we weren't quite sure what to make of it. And I wouldn't even really call it a bad thing. It was just like we were trying to readjust our brains to what they were doing, because you could definitely see that they were going in a unique direction going forward. And it's absolutely a homage to the 60s and 70s Showa era Godzilla films, because they just said, fuck it, let's have fun with it. Let's just do whatever and just be crazy. I mean, the Scar King being your protagonist or your antagonist, he's one of those type of villains, except I would say a lot more cunning and vicious and downright just mean. You know, I mean,
from what I've seen I've seen clips of him, and I know there was a scene in the Hollow Earth where he kicks another one of the chimps into the lava behind him, and I have to admit, I've had a lot of the movie leaked to me on TikTok. I'll be honest. I will say I love how they still show Godzilla as a badass, in the sense that I love when Scar King takes his is that whip made out of spine? Is that what it's made out of?
Like a big spinal cord.
Yeah. I like when he goes to whip Godzilla with it, and Godzilla grabs it with his mouth, and Scar King goes to pull it, and Godzilla's just like, not today.
Yeah. So it's definitely that type of movie. I mean, and I think if you are uninitiated with Godzilla, it's going to be jarring, especially if -1 is like your first foray into Godzilla films. But if you've been with the MonsterVerse up till now, I feel like you'd kind of roll with it maybe it's not your cup of tea. Maybe you want something a little serious, but that's the beauty of these movies. You can have the serious and you can have the silly, and it works. And I think if you are and I don't like saying true fan because that's such a bullshit thing to say. If you really, really, truly enjoy kaiju films, you will take them in any way you can get them. And I've said 100 times over, I know that you have people out there who will sit there and say, fucking Son of Godzilla is the stupidest goddamn movie ever. Whereas on the other flip side, I'll tell you, go to hell. I think it's just enjoyable as hell to watch because I know it's silly. I know it's ridiculous, but you know what? There's comfort in there for me, and I love it. And I think this will become another one of those comfort movies over time where you just put it on and it just brings you joy because there's nothing. It's doing everything you want it to. You're just getting to see monsters beat the hell out of each other and then fight and do whatever. And the fact that I even feel like to a point they were making it in I guess marketing. They were just like, yeah, there are a lot of scenes where the monsters, they're really focus on them. They used to do that back in the other movies too. They would actually take a little extra time and stay with the monsters. And I feel like they are now trying to do that over here, thinking, well, we can't have a movie without, the humans. You can. I mean, they're kind of driving the plot to a point, but staying with the monsters for long periods, I'm all for it. Don't show me a damn human one. I could care less because, all these monsters that we're watching, I can understand kind of what's going on. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out what's happening, so you can just kind of go through it. And there were plenty of these little scenes, like for long stretches, where you'd have Kong interacting with whatever he's finding down in Hollow Earth. And when he even got to the Scar King, I felt like that was a whole big scene that went on for quite a while. And it was just him dealing with that. It's no dialogue, no nothing. It's just, but you understand what's going on.
Yeah. And see, that's one thing that I actually really liked about the King Kong film that came out. Oh God, I can't even remember how long ago it was. Jack Black was in it.
2005, yeah.
Yes, that one followed Kong quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because now it's like that's what the people want. But back when that movie came out, people were like, why are we just following the giant monkey everywhere? People's views change on those things. But I had heard that Kong really carried the movie because it really follows his story. And I figured you would appreciate that because I know that when the two of them fought in the previous movie, I know you were kind of like rooting for Kong a little bit. You wanted to see Kong, do a little more. And I feel like, at least for you, this was sort of what was lacking in the other film. You got a little bit more of Kong. You got to see a little bit more of how his life is. And I'm glad he found more giant apes. I will say that.
Well, and that is actually one of the things I was kind of hoping for going into this is, Godzilla vs. Kong was a little bit more central focused on Kong than Godzilla. But yeah, making him seem like I don't want to say he's incompetent. He could always fight. It just always felt like he was always being the underdog and always getting taken down. And even here, I still felt like they weren't, like he would have his badass moments and then there would be those moments where you're like, come on, man. And it irked me a little bit because I feel like the director is not, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. I feel like there's this less love for Kong, and I feel like it needs to be equal. And there was even a scene, which, minor spoiler, it's nothing, like I won't go beyond this, but it was one of those that I was just like, it brought up a little anger in me. Because when we first watched Godzilla vs. Kong, that scene where they get to the fight and then Godzilla pins him down with his foot, like I knew that was it. Like the fight was done. And I was like, fuck. And that's where I got upset. Same shit happens again where not necessarily the fight is over, but Godzilla is trying to put his foot back on his chest to kind of be like, kind of get him back in that bully position. You know what I'm saying? And the fact that they were just, Kong was fighting back, and I'll give him that. So I guess maybe that's part of it that I can let slide a little bit, because every time he would try it, Kong was like, get the fuck off me. And like it was not going to allow it to happen. And I don't know, it was just the fact that we were going back to that. It's like, don't put him back in this position just to have him show dominance. Because even when the fight started, I got really, really excited because obviously they do kind of have a little tumble at first. It's not like a big rematch or anything like that. It's almost like when Kong goes after him to be like, hey, buddy, let's team up. Godzilla's like, no, fuck you. You're not supposed to be here, and just goes at him. So
that's in Egypt, right?
Yeah. So, and again, I'm trying to be as spoiler free as possible without, so if you haven't seen any of the clips, but essentially when the fight starts and Godzilla starts in on him, Kong, I mean, he literally gets him to the ground at one point and just starts beating the ever-loving shit out of him. And I'm going, yeah, because I felt like this was almost like a little bit of payback. Like, I know we don't need to be fighting right now, but you beat the hell out of me last time. I'm getting my licks in now. Kiss my ass. And then I'll let you get up later. Right. So that moment I was like, yeah. Because it's not that I wanted him to like dominate him completely. And I will even say this, and I won't even tell you what it is. There is a scene within that fight that brought me so much joy that could counter that whole trying to stomp on his chest thing just a little bit. But I feel like it should have been the other way around. Like when you see them, I think the scene that I'm talking about would have brought me a little bit more joy had that been the way the fight ended, if you catch my drift. But I won't tell you what it is. But when you see it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Be like, yep, that's it. So, I don't know. At the end of the day, though, I would say, and they didn't say it, but maybe the whole purpose of this narrative, like they said in the last one, it was supposed to be like Kong is trying to find his home, and then now he has found his people, his home, all that. So maybe this is his way of becoming King Kong. If you
gotcha,
because Scar King now he's King Kong. Maybe that was kind of the purpose of it.
Now, I have one more question in regards to the film.
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of Shimo?
The way that character played out, especially toward the way it ends, was not what I was expecting. But in a good way, because you have these preconceived notions, and the way it all kind of plays out, you're like, oh, okay, cool. You know, so you just kind of let it sit. But I thought it was a very interesting take on kind of the anti-Godzilla, if you will. It almost like they didn't go into great detail about the history like they did kind of mention, that she was like an ancient titan or something like that. But you can see similarities to Godzilla, and I was curious if they were going to maybe explore that or even maybe explain a little bit. So, but they didn't. So I would kind of be under the assumption that if they are not related directly in some way, as far as like being the same species of Titan, it could be like an offshoot, like you would have a coyote and a wolf or something like that, where they're similar but not quite the same thing, because she does kind of have her own powers and way of things. So again, it was an interesting dichotomy of how they kind of created, like, here are your heroes, here are your anti versions of them, or their villainous visages.
But she was a pretty cool she was kaiju and everything.
She was definitely a force to be reckoned with, because another minor spoiler, the glove that you see Kong with, she's responsible for getting that on his arm, and I'll just leave it at that. Like, if it wasn't for her, he wouldn't have that arm. So
nice.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I've spent my whole weekend debating on what to go see at the theater, because we've been talking about going to the theater to see one movie. I'd love to go see, there's like 3 movies out right now I want to see, but I'm not going to spend all that much money to go see them. So
yeah, we would also like to go see Ghostbusters, despite what people are saying. I know that's a franchise that I don't think can catch a break anymore. I think you're never gonna make anyone happy with that franchise. I think it's
no. Well, and I watched an honest review. It was a spoiler-free review of it, and the guy that watched it, he said, if you're a Ghostbusters fan, you'll enjoy it, because it pays a lot of tribute to the originals. You get to see the way that the characters have changed. Like, there's a lot to love about it. If you're not a Ghostbusters fan, it might not be for you. But, it is what it is. Any chance I get to see, Ernie Hudson, Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray, all of them together, I'm a happy guy.
Sure. Yeah.
Which they just did photo shoots of them, and I didn't realize Ernie Hudson was as old as he is.
He was the oldest out of the lot. That blew my mind, because we were sitting there talking about that. Yeah, Katrina and I. He looked so much better.
Yeah. I will say I cannot think of her name. Oh, Lord, she's their secretary, and she's
Annie
actually
Potts.
Ghostbuster in this.
Yeah.
She's still actually a very lovely looking woman for her age and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so stupid for not knowing, but I didn't know she was Meemaw on Young Sheldon.
Yeah.
Like, that did not click to me, and I'm just like, what? Speaking of TV shows and Ghostbusters, apparently Rick Moranis is going to be guest starring on the TV show The Goldbergs.
Did he not already? Because that
He
show
might have. I just
canceled. That might be an old article.
I didn't know if it had been canceled yet or done its final season,
Well,
or if it
did
was
its
still doing its final season.
I guess it'd be the best way. But yeah, he popped
Well,
up.
I guess he guest starred on it. I didn't know.
I think he did. Well, showed up in it in the sense that they did some kind of like what they did with the Freddy thing, where Robert Englund showed up as Freddy in a odd dream sequence or something like that. It was Dark Helmet from Spaceballs, and he was doing the voice. So I'm assuming somebody else was probably in the costume, and he just provided the voice.
Possibly. I wish he would come back into acting. Like,
Yeah.
funny guy. And Robert Englund did the Goldbergs because of his manager. That was a gift to his manager because his manager was a fan of the show.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad
People
he
might
did
not
it.
know that, but
Because that was a
it
treat.
was our last little nod, and everybody was making jokes like, "Man, Freddie got thick." I'm like, "Give the guy a break. He's in his 70s. Like, fuck off, people."
Yeah, no kidding.
Anyways,
Anyway.
all this randomness. So, let's just get down to business here. The HorrorHound Film Festival in Cincinnati. That was the weekend of the 24th that we went.
And we to clarify too, I know we've also been off for about 2 weeks, and we had planned on having a little something last week. We were having so much fun, time got away from us. So
Yeah. We got back after everything, and I heard someone say, "Did they record yet?" I'm like, "We were going to record today." I'm like, my bad. I have been to this festival since it took up a small convention center room in a much smaller hotel. Like the hotel was where the convention was at. It was not the size of the convention that we were at. It's changed a lot over the years. And to clarify to everyone, Steven was the one that actually got us there. He sent an email about the podcast, and they ended up giving us press passes. So we got to go in. We didn't know a lot about the press pass thing, and I'm going to just say this now. For all the fun that we had at the convention, I understand that the press passes are free, and that's always a good thing. But there were a few things with the press passes that I thought were kind of not so great. One of those things being we didn't get notified about the press event until the day of, which I don't know if maybe, that was something on our end, which I don't think it was.
No, I didn't get that email until that week or day before.
Yeah, I wish that they would send that out at the beginning.
Sure,
if they say, "Hey, we're going to give you press passes," they should be able to say, "Here's everything that you need." I also think that if you have press passes, there should be a early admission. That way you aren't interrupting the show like they want, like they don't want you to. Because they even say that in the thing, like, you're responsible for talking. Do not set up interviews if they're going to interrupt the show. Maybe give the press like an hour before.
Sure.
Just going to say that. I appreciate that we were given that because it's awesome that we were able to go in and, we didn't have to worry about that. But yeah, I think if you're gonna give people press passes, then maybe give them the ability to use them to maybe set up things ahead of time so you're not standing in a line waiting for hours to just say, "Hey, we would love to interview you sometime," and not actually get the chance to talk to them a little bit. I understand that the press event that they did was for the film festival part of it, so we would have got to talk to some like indie filmmakers, and that's completely fine. I would love to do that as well, but yeah, I think that they should maybe change them around a little bit to give you the ability to go in and talk to some of the celebrities. Even though I will say we had some pretty good experiences with the celebrities that we talked to, and I know we'll get into that. But what were your thoughts on the whole like process of getting in and everything?
It really felt I kind of agree with you, underwhelming, because it just felt like we got free tickets into the show. I didn't feel like we had special access to things. I mean, hell, even our pass into the venue was nothing more than an armband, and that just kind of caught me off guard because I was expecting like an actual pass that showed. And again, that's my assumptions based on shit we've seen movies. This is what they do to us, but it just felt so like, how is anybody supposed to know that we're press, or with an establishment there to cover the event? And I don't know, it felt a little underwhelming. So when we're going around trying to pitch the pod and talk to these people and be like, hey, we'd love to talk to you, I felt like we didn't have any credibility outside of trying to make ourselves seem more credible. We didn't have the bona fides, if you will, to be like, hey, we're actually here on a press pass. We're here, on a professional capacity to get to know you and also to be, fans and whatnot, but still on a professional capacity. And I don't know, I felt like it helped, or it kept us from selling ourselves better than we could have.
Yeah.
And again, I think we did fantastic. I think, the conversations we had, like you said, everything was very cordial. Everybody was nice. We didn't have any Zach Galligan incidences. So, I don't know. Yeah, it seemed a little underwhelming, and that's on us, I guess, for assuming. But if you're applying for a press pass, you feel like if you're going to deny me that, you have the power to do so, then you feel like there should be a little bit more to it than that, outside of just one little event.
Yeah.
And maybe we missed a whole slew. But again, I kept up with every email that we got. That's the only one that I received is about that event. And so, yeah, it felt a little disappointing.
Yeah. I know that they had mentioned when we were talking to them, about the press passes and everything, they had said that a lot of people make their own lanyards and, maybe wear shirts or whatever. And I understand, this was our first time going in the press pass sort of way. So obviously we didn't know that we needed those things. But to me, it almost seems like you'd be more ahead to get a VIP pass, like just spend the money, get the top of the line VIP pass, and take advantage of the line skips, the early admission, and stuff like that. Because I don't think the press gets early admission. I think it was just the VIPs that got the hour early admission. So that would be something great to take advantage of, because just like with Sam Raimi, from my understanding, he was like Robert Englund is, in the sense that you have to get a ticket to wait in line to meet him. Mm-hmm. So with just a regular press pass, I don't think we would have even gotten that opportunity.
Sure, no.
So, which, let's just put this out here now. We got to meet Ted.
Mm-hmm.
I got to ask him about Evil Dead on a boat, and he was really thrown off by, which is fine. He's probably never been asked that. So we're good. But their brother gets no credit.
Yeah.
And he's written on pretty much all the films. And when I was asking Ted about Evil Dead on a boat, what does he do? He looks at his brother and goes, well, he's the writer. Are we ever going to get Evil Dead on a boat? And, obviously he just looks at me and goes, yeah. But, the guy has worked on pretty much all the stuff that they've written. Like, Sam Raimi's written too, but it seems like their brother writes the majority. They sort of, write as well with him. Mm-hmm. But Sam directs, Ted performs, does behind-the-scenes things. And I feel bad because I can't even remember his name right now. Ivan, there it is. Sorry, Ivan, man. It's no fair that when you get Googled that you pop up as Sam Raimi's brother. That's not fair.
No. We even sat in, we were trying to figure out the line situation because, again, Sam was out the door, and then we look over at Ivan and Ted, and there's nobody really there. There was maybe one or two people at Ted, nobody at Ivan, so we go straight for Ted. And as we're standing there, I comment that there's nobody in Ivan's line, and I felt bad, and I thought we should go over there, but then it would look like a pity visit, and I didn't want it to feel that way, so we just kind of stayed in the line. So it's like, well, shit. What do you do? I don't know. I did feel bad for him, but again, how do you have that conversation with the writer? I guess. I mean, yeah, I enjoy all the movies that he's written, but I don't, and I honestly feel like that's why no one was in his line, because no one knows him. Ted, you have a face. Sam, you've essentially gotten a face because he's gotten popular. So you have a face that you know and be like, I know that guy. Ivan,
Yeah.
Like I've seen pictures of him, but it's...
Yeah, just, you're like, who are you?
Yeah.
But hey, that's what happens to a lot of the writers and the behind-the-scenes guys. They go unnoticed, even though they don't deserve to.
Mm-hmm.
So, but, I mean, we didn't get to talk to Sam, but Ted was nice. Ivan was nice. They didn't really give us any grief or anything. We didn't get autographs, which there's some celebrities, you know who I'm talking about,
Mm-hmm.
who you go to get their autograph and or you don't want their autograph, you just want to say hi, and they're complete jerks about it. And I can't stand that. Another person who I'd like to shout out, and I'm bad with names, you know this, the guy that was in the newest Halloween film.
Ryan Campbell.
Yes. Super nice guy.
Mm-hmm.
Real down to earth. Chit-chatted with us. I mean, it was just like we were sitting there having a regular old conversation. Gave him a business card for the podcast, and who knows, maybe he's listening. You never know.
I mean, I'd like to definitely get him on the show to talk if that's possible. We can make it work, because he seemed like a guy that we could have a good conversation with here, just talking about not only his work in the horror field, and I mean I know he's going to be doing a lot more. I saw that his name was popped up on a new movie coming up, but I can't remember what it was. But he seemed like he was in the pocket of horror, like he understood it. And we even kind of gave him praise for Halloween Ends, and I know that's sacrilege to some people, but I felt like he needed to hear it, and maybe he didn't. Maybe he didn't. He almost seemed like he was a little dumbfounded by some of the negative. I was like, you have been on the internet, right?
Right.
But
I do like his response, though. He's like, if people are going to hate, they're going to hate. Oh, well.
Yeah, and that's a great mindset to have, and I think that's very healthy, because he's not letting it get to him, and that's good. But yeah, I'd definitely love to have him on the show sometime if we can get him before he blows up.
Yeah, right. Sometimes we get lucky and we get the people right before they decide they don't want to come on the show. I'm looking at the guest list because I'm bad with names. So, we did meet Ethan Suplee.
He was great
just
guy.
Down to earth. Yep.
I wanted
down to earth.
I wanted to get a picture or autograph, and that was another thing too. We were kind of on limited funds this week or that week, and you really got to plan for these, because goddamn, I mean, just the amount of people that you want to meet and hang out with and get a little something from them, it gets costly, and that's an issue with some of these cons and all. But the fact that you had people who would just talk to us and they weren't assholes, like you said, that meant the world to me, because second time through, if I happen to see them again, I'm gonna go out of my way and I'm gonna get a picture or something like that. I'll pay for something because you gave me a great first impression. You listened to what I had to say. You heard me ramble and you're so awesome, that kind of thing. And you were cool about it. And so that just gives me a great thought in my head. He was a cool dude. I'm going to come back and see him again, and I'm going to bring some money,
Yeah. And I will say this, it does seem like, and I get it, things are getting more expensive. They have to pay for their hotels. They have to give so much money back to the convention. They have to pay for the pictures that they're signing for people. Like, there's a lot that goes into it. So yes, prices have gone up substantially, I would say. Mm-hmm. And having money is definitely the biggest thing, because not only do you have the celebrities and everything to meet, you have photo shoots that you can do with them. You also have vendors. There are tons and tons of vendors. And I mean, we got to see quite a few interesting items. I know that you you had seen quite a few things that kind of were grabbing at you.
Mm-hmm.
I know you wanted that. I know you wanted that Ghoulies figure, that life-sized one.
Yeah, there were a lot of those that I would love to have, but alas, I was just happy to see that there was actually Ghoulies stuff, you know. And now, granted, it seemed to be more based on like the second movie iterations of them, but I mean, I've not seen Ghoulies merchandise before, and then there's dolls and like life-size replicas and all this other shit. And I'm like, holy shit, that was cool, you know. The fact that that's finally getting some love behind the scenes, which didn't we hear that they're possibly remaking Ghoulies? We didn't talk about that. Yeah. So there's a rumor that's floating around, so hopefully that'll happen and it'll be taken care of proper.
While I'm thinking about merchandise, have you opened your Godzilla blanket?
Oh yes. I've been sleeping with it ever since I got home.
I was going to ask, is it a nice blanket?
Oh, yeah.
It seems like it was huge and very, very soft.
Yeah,
so.
very, very comfortable. Keeps me warm. So I've been enjoying the hell out of it. It's just a beautiful looking blanket.
And it's something you might not have found somewhere else.
That's
so
true.
You never know.
And it's high quality. You know, sometimes you can get some vendors who are kind of pawning off some second-rate stuff, but this looked like it was crafted very well. I've not seen any kind of problems with it. The pictures and everything that you see on it are clear as day. So I don't know. That was a good buy because it was something. Because I know I was eyeballing like those T-shirts and whatnot, and kind of really wanted them, but at the same time it was like it would be nice to have something new, something unique that I don't normally get, and something I would really enjoy. And that would be, even if I'm not using it, I could probably hang it up somewhere, and it would just be this display of Godzilla posters, which would make my day just as much. So I get to look at it all the time now, and I think that's something it was a good purchase. Something I don't regret, that's for sure.
And I will say they had a lot more. I think now I look for Godzilla stuff more because of our friendship. So like now when I go places, if there's Godzilla stuff, I seem to find it and see it a lot easier. But man, there was a lot more Godzilla stuff there than I had initially realized. And I mean, it does sort of play into the whole subject of Godzilla as horror. So, you know, but the fact that they had some of the stuff that they had, I mean, they had everything from Funko Pops to action figures to, you know, lots of handmade art. I know there were a few paintings that I saw that I really wanted that I have no room for.
And shout out to those artists too, because my God, a lot of the work that we saw, I don't really know what we could have said, and I'm sure we could have gone up and talked to them, but well, we did. We talked to a few of the artists. I know there was a guy with the comic books, the comic covers. That was really cool. So this guy had like recreated comic book covers from other comics, but interspersed it with horror characters. So it'd be like I'm trying to think of, that's bad. I remember them, but I can't remember them. It was like the Invincible Jason or something like that, but it almost looked like a Spider-Man-esque cover or something like that.
Yeah.
And I know each character or horror icon had some sort of different.
Yeah, I know he had a Freddy one that was from a Wolverine comic.
That's right.
But it was Freddy. It was Freddy in place of Wolverine.
Oh.
A lot of Ninja Turtles stuff too.
Yeah.
Go ahead. What were you saying?
Well, I remembered another one that was I think it was giant size X-Men comic cover where they're all kind of running outside of the book like they burst through it, but it was horror icons. And I can't remember what the title was, but I remember it was like all of them running forward. I don't know. That was pretty cool. It's like that bridges that gap between horror movie lover and comic book lover. Like this is where they meet, is right there in that guy's art.
See, there was a booth. They weren't there this year, but there's a booth that makes they make the Marvel Zombies. They actually make the figures, and you can buy them. Which that was another booth that I know you really liked. The booth that had the figures that they made, and they designed their own Frankenberry.
Yes. Oh my God, so awesome.
He was cool. He was cool as shit. I would say that figure was probably close to.
It was $200 or at least something over that.
And I think it was like what maybe 14 inches
Yeah.
high or something like that.
It was tall.
And
it was very detailed. Like, worth the money for sure.
it was like they pulled Frankenberry out of the cereal box cover.
Yeah, and just...
And yeah, the design was... The only character they've ever made that I've thought looked a little off was their Freddy. Like, that's the only one that I think looks just a little off. Their Jason looks bulky and real realistic. Their Michael, he looks, I'm trying to think of what iteration of Michael Myers it is.
It doesn't really look like any iteration out of the movies. It looks off. Because even... that was something very detailed that they put into how they labeled them. They weren't those characters. I think, like, the tag around Michael Myers was Halloween Man, and then Freddy was like Nightmare Man or something like that. So
yeah,
maybe they're meant to be a little off, but yeah, Michael looked
could be.
a little thick around the face.
Yeah. It almost reminded me of the design they have for him in Dead by Daylight.
Yeah,
kind of looks like that one a little bit. So, which he's called the Shape in that. So, fun little fact. But another person that I want to mention that we met, that I'm glad that you finally got to meet, Lloyd.
Yes.
Good old Lloyd.
That whole booth, by the
Lloyd.
way.
Oh, that's the thing. Like, everybody there, you can tell that Trauma is really a family. Like, everybody that works there is a family, because the same people that were there this time were there when I went. The lady that took the picture with all of us is the lady that took the picture when I went. And they're all like that all the time. They're very close. They're very tight-knit. And I appreciate the hell out of that. And I'll say this again, Lloyd is probably one of my favorite guests that we've had on. I love all the guests that we've had on, but Lloyd is he is so hard to keep up with.
Yeah, next level.
And, he even made comments about coming back on the show, and love to have him.
Sure.
Would love to talk about the new, the remake of Toxic Avenger that's coming out. Because just hearing him talk about anything is entertaining. I mean, he's the only guy that I've ever met that has called Elvira a cunt. So
no, he denies it. I heard it. You heard it.
We all heard it. But no, Lloyd was cool. I want to talk about the moment you had. We had just arrived, and we're walking around, and we see an empty booth, and I could see the look on your face. You were livid, like you could see it on your face. You were physically upset and angered by the fact, and I don't blame you. A legend in the business had no one at his booth.
Yeah,
Mr. George Wendt, who was a delight.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that one. I understand my age has a lot to do with it, because we're talking about a guy that I grew up with. And if you were born in the 80s, Cheers was a show that everybody knew, because it was probably one of the highest rated shows on television. We're talking about a show that probably raked in 10 to 20 million views a week, something that most shows can't even manage anymore. That's insane to even think about. And so everybody knew Norm. Everybody, like, he was the guy. And anytime you see him, Norm, it's a thing. And now he just got relegated to being at this convention that he feels so out of place being in, even though he was in-house. And probably, I know there was one or two others that are slipping my mind. But
Family's the one I always think of.
That's the one. That was the one I was trying to pull on, and I couldn't remember it. But, again, he's a legend to me. Like, I look at him and I'm like, that's the guy. And there's not a soul amongst his table. Like, he's just being walked past. And it pissed me off, because I was like, what the fuck is this? This is Norm. And nobody seemed to give a damn. It was like, who is this guy? I don't know. Just, it rubbed me the wrong way. But he was the guy. Like I said, I'm getting a picture with him. I don't give a shit. And I made it happen because that was Norm. What other opportunity am I going to have?
Right. And I was just thinking, there's what we need. We need a Norm spinoff where Norm is a serial killer. There's your horror meets Cheers. Yeah. There we go.
And the other thing too about meeting him, and I maybe I was wrong. Maybe I read the room wrong or anything like that. But I don't know whether he felt like maybe he was tired, maybe he was exhausted or something like that, but he just didn't seem like he was caring to be there. And I know, again, very, very hospitable, cordial person. Like, he didn't treat us bad at all. But it genuinely seemed like, what am I doing here? You know?
You could see it. Yeah, you could see it on his face that he was tired.
Yeah.
I know I've said this before, and I'll say this again. You know, we forget that these people are just that. They are people like the rest of us. Norm is, what, in his 70s? I would say.
A little older than that, I'd say.
Probably closer to 80.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. He was on TV not too long ago. They did I think it was the Golden Globes, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
They did a Cheers reunion. They had them all up on stage. They had it was like the bar.
Yeah.
And they were all sitting there, and, you know, he looked probably 20 years younger than he did when we saw him.
Yeah.
So don't ever be fooled. Just because actors and actresses still look really young and everything, they're still people like the rest of us. They get tired. They get exhausted. They have their own problems. So if you see somebody at one of these conventions that's just like, they have no one there talking to them or anything, go up and say hi.
Yeah.
Like, not gonna hurt, and you might learn something. Like, there's been times where I've been at the convention, and, you know, they have all the photos out that you can choose from to get signed, and you'll look down and you'll see that they were in a movie that you might not have realized that they were in, or you might have forgotten they were in. And to me, that's like the best feeling. You know, you discover that someone that you didn't know was in something is in it, and you're like, holy crap,
Yeah.
I didn't realize that you'd done this. But no, Norm was wonderful. Now I'm gonna just call him Norm. He was super nice, and like you said, gave us no grief. But you could tell that he was probably wanting to go back to his hotel,
Yeah.
just relax.
Like, we even kind of brought up conversation with him, because I talked about how I'd seen him on The Masked Singer and all that here recently, and he even commented on that, you know, talking about the costume and everything, and I thought that was kind of neat that because he could have just been like, yeah, thanks, but he actually talked about the process and everything and what it was like for him, and I thought that was kind of a neat little detail that he didn't need to share, but he did, and I appreciated it.
Oh, I even remember the one thing he said. He was like, the costume was so wide. He's like, it was probably as wide as this table.
Yeah.
He's like, I couldn't walk through doorways straight. I had to turn and walk sideways. And I'm like, you had to side shuffle? And he was like, yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it might not sound like a lot, but he really could have just been like, oh, yeah, thanks. That's cool. Next.
Yeah.
You know? And we've met celebrities like that. And I know in the TikTok we posted, we called someone out, and, you know, I don't care. I haven't gotten any negative comments about that, but if I get any negative comments about it, I'm just going to put it out there. Some celebrities are just jerks.
I'll tell you point blank, if you've met him before, go up and meet him again and don't bring any money and see how that goes.
Yeah.
Because I guarantee he's not going to remember you, but I could be wrong.
And see, and I was so worried about that with Ted Raimi.
Yeah.
When he was like, well, we take this, and this. Do you have Venmo? Well, no, we honestly just wanted to come up to say hi. And I didn't know how that conversation was going to go after that. I didn't know if he was going to shut down on us or what.
I mean,
I get it. He's, you know.
I was willing to go the distance, you know, because I told him, because, I mean, I went up there with the sole purpose of giving them money, and they were just like, well, gotta have, or, well, did they take cash, or it was cash or
Venmo?
Yeah, so I think I had already spent whatever was in my wallet, so I didn't have just enough, or I was like short just a few bucks, and then I was like, well, shit, but I thought, I'll just use my card or whatever. They're like, well, Venmo, and I was like, I don't do Venmo. I mean, how many of these little digital money swappers do you need?
Right. And, you know, there's a lot of celebrities that they do take card or whatever, but, like, I tell everybody the same thing. If you're going to go to the con and you're going to spend money, stop at an ATM before you go to the convention, because their ATMs are normally bled dry.
Oh, yeah.
Like, completely. But, you know, even though we didn't pay for an autograph from Ted Raimi, he was still pleasant. Mm-hmm. So I will give him that. I'm trying to think of, like, a few other people that we met that were really nice. I cannot think of his name. Director of the Blair Witch. He's directed a few other things. I think I gave you his card after we
Yeah.
left his booth. I cannot think of his name.
There's words come into my brain, and I'm trying to pull on them because there's like something that's coming to my mind, and I'll get it. Hang on, we're getting there. People, just bear with us. Eduardo Sanchez. Is that right?
There it is.
There we go.
I think so. He was super awesome.
Yeah.
That's all I'm going to say. Minute we mentioned that we were from a podcast, he's like, I do podcasts all the time. Here, take my card. Be in touch with me.
Mm-hmm.
I'll come on your show. I'm like, not even going to ask any questions? Like, okay.
Yeah.
And, I did sort of pour my heart out a little bit to him, told him that I thought he... And let's be real, it is the truth. He directed one of the most memorable found footage films of all time. The found footage film that I think every other found footage film has tried to get to the level of.
Yeah.
Because they were so convincing with what they did in that they actually sent the authorities out to see if those people were really missing. Like, that's saying something.
That's like cannibal Holocaust level paranoia.
Exactly. The director is in charge of directing everyone, convincing, if the actors aren't doing something the way that he feels is good enough, he's calling them on it. That's a huge weight to bear, and I feel like he did so well with it. And I know him from other things, but let's be real. When you think of the things that he's directed, I feel like Blair Witch is like the one that sort of is above the rest as far as, when you mention that he's directed something, you could name a few things and they'd be like, what? But you name Blair Witch, they're like, oh, he directed that movie. Okay. But again, he was just real down-to-earth guy.
Yeah.
And again, we didn't buy anything. We just went up to say hi.
Mm-hmm.
I would gladly get an autograph from him the next time that we go and take a picture with him because he didn't give me any reason to think that he was a jerk.
Sure, yeah.
So, and Kane Hodder.
Yeah, we bumped into Kane again.
We briefly talked to him. Gave him a card. Something could come of that. I never know. He says he even told us, he was like, I keep all the cards I get. He said I do look through them and stuff. And I thought it was funny. He poked fun of my name. That was kind of funny. Yeah. He's like, that's a grandpa's name. I'm like, yeah, I know. My son's name, Lester, too. He's like, oh, come on. He is actually, like, to know what he's been through in his life and to see that he is still such a positive human being, that shows me that life can be good. Yeah. Even in the darkest times. Because, I mean, if you get the chance to watch it, I know I bring it up a lot, but watch To Hell and Back, the Kane Hodder story, and you will understand, like, you'll have a whole new respect for him because he went through a lot of pain in his life. He's burnt over like 80% of his body. Mm-hmm. And he was in the their local hospital was not made for burns. And all of his treatments, when they had to scrape off the dead skin with a scalpel, all that, no pain medicine. His dad was so worried about pain medicine because his dad was a vet. All of his buddies got addicted to drugs and pain pills and things like that. He didn't want that to happen to his son. And Kane went through that for months. And then he was told that he was going to die because he got an infection. But he got transferred. He made a recovery. But just seeing him talk about it, especially when you watch the documentary and you see him talk about it, you actually see him break down. You see him cry and everything. And you're like, this is Jason fucking Voorhees. This is Victor Crowley. This guy rips people's heads off. But to see him vulnerable like that, it gives you a whole new respect for the guy. Yeah. And meeting him, I've seen him in passing at the cons. That was the first time I'd ever actually spoken to him, other than I think when we briefly spoke to him at the other convention we went to. That was when COVID was still kind of a big thing, and so it was kind of a real short, hey, how you doing? And he kind of seemed like he didn't feel good at the con that we went to before, but this one we actually got to talk to him, and he joked with us for a moment. And I don't know, he seems like the kind of person that if you could just sit and have like a burger with him and just like chit chat with him or something, yeah, he'd be a fun guy to go do something like that with.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So, but here I am rambling about anybody. Is there anyone else you want to talk about? Because I got one other guy that I know we met, but was there anyone in particular you want to talk about that we met?
I'm trying to think of anybody else that. There's only one other one that's coming to mind that I know we spoke to, and that's probably who you're going to bring up. And I'm trying to remember if there's anybody else, and that's bad if we can't remember them because apparently they didn't leave an impression. I mean,
I know we met all kinds of people.
There were a handful that I know we walked by because you know what, I want to bring this up real quick because I kind of had a moment where we were talking about all the people, and I'm looking at all these names, I'm looking at all these faces, I'm like, you know, it would be cool to meet these people, but I wasn't like I was telling Lester, it was like at some point it was just like, yeah, it would be cool, but am I dying to meet this person? You know what I mean? Is it going to be the end of the world? Like when I went to that piece of shit Comic-Con in Louisville years ago, my sole purpose of going was to meet Stan Lee. I had that goal, you know. Here, yeah, there were people I'd like to meet, but I didn't have anybody like it was set in stone, gotta meet, that's it, end of story, nothing. Stan was one of those people. Lloyd, I guess, would have been one of those people. You know, we were there. It was like, well, yeah, we got to go stop by and see Lloyd. Coincidence? I think not. But outside of that, you know, I mean, they were people that I thought it would be cool to meet, but I didn't have those like, I got to really, really meet this person. But it was still just cool that the ones that we did were as gracious and kind as they were, you know, because it's like you said, it's a gamble. You don't know what kind of attitude you're going to get. And I think that was part of the reason I didn't push for some others, because if I didn't really have that kind of connection. For example, William Catt. He was right near George Wendt. And this is a guy, you know, he also was in-house. He was in The Greatest American Hero for all you people over 40 who remember that show. And you know, he'd been in a lot of other... He was in Carrie. He's the boyfriend / her date to the prom, whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about the guy, but there was just this vibe, you know? Like, I was afraid he would be one of those people. Like, if I came up and I was like, dude, I know you from this and this, and I just wanted to meet you, he'd just kind of be like, eh. And again, I could be way off. That's my assumption of a person. So, it's unfair, but... Just a feeling I had, and that's why I was a little hesitant to go talk to him. You know what I mean? So,
well, and we were kind of like that with Eli Roth, because that's when we got confused with the line. We were in Eli Roth's line, and I know we were like talking, and we were like, you know, he kind of just lets off a vibe. You don't really know what to think of the guy.
Yeah, and he might be the coolest dude ever. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, you know, like not saying he's a bad guy, you know, by any means. Just, you know, do we want to wait in line this long to see him and then it be for nothing?
Yeah. But hey, you made some friends in that line though.
yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. Actually, I still have their card. Her boyfriend does tattoos at the cons, and she kind of wanders around and meets people, which, you know, that would be kind of cool, you know, setting up a booth and then being able to just attend the con and whatnot. I mean, I think that would be kind of fun. But another person that kind of lets off that vibe to me, somebody that I kind of wanted to meet, but I wasn't sure how it would go. Ken, I think it's Forey.
Yeah, Ken Forey, yeah.
You know, everything I've ever seen him in, he's always, to me, acted like, he's always acted like his character in The Devil's Rejects. In almost every movie I've seen him in. He's like just that, you know, he's insane, but he's just kind of like a cool guy.
Yeah.
I mean, we walked right by him, and like there were a few times where I was like, I kind of want to go say hi, but I don't know how it would go. And I don't necessarily think it was because I don't think he would be a jerk. I know him in a lot of things, but I'm bad at remembering titles of things. So I would hate to be like, you're in that one movie, and then you're in that other movie, and you're in that other thing that I saw, and you know, that other thing. And I'm just, you know, I'd be fumbling all over my words talking to him. And that would just make everything just feel tainted to me.
Sure. No, I get it.
In the conversation.
And I think a lot of people in that industry, because, you know, this is actually a conversation that I heard, like my co-host over on Super Mega Crash, she made mention of this interaction, and I can't remember what we were talking about. I think it's an episode that probably isn't out yet, so we were talking about Bruce Campbell, and she had made mention that she had went to a con to meet Bruce, and, you know, I guess the rest of the cast of The Evil Dead was there. And she went up and met the guy who was in the original Evil Dead. He was like Ash's best friend who went with him to the cabin. Now, I can't remember who the actor is. I don't know anything else he's been in, but he was in that movie, that's for damn sure. And she just thought, hey, I'll go up and say hi, be nice. And she did. And his response back to her was, oh yeah? What else have you seen me in? And I'm sitting there thinking, what kind of fucking response is that? This is somebody who actually took the time to come say hi to you. That they are at least a fan of this thing you were in. And that's how you're going to treat them? Yeah. Because, like you said, you go up to Ken and you know the movies, but perhaps the titles are not coming to you. And that's not because you don't remember them or you don't care. It's just maybe you're so nervous you can't pull those fucking names out of your head. So he's just going to think, well, this guy's a poser. Well, then why the fuck would I even waste my time coming up to you? You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm not saying that that's what Ken would do, but I understand that fear of thinking, how am I going to look like an idiot because I can't remember? That's actors, directors, writers, whoever are at these cons. I think you ought to let it pass because sometimes people, that's what I appreciate about Ethan. When we went up, I even mentioned, I was like, I don't really know how to do all this shit. You know, I ramble. I don't know what to say. And he was like, it's cool, man. Don't worry about it. You know, appreciated it. Calm me right the fuck down real quick. So.
And you guys were even able to talk about, you know, you brought up his fitness journey and getting into the shape that he's in now. And you talked about how you had your own journey in getting, you know, fit and things like that. And you guys didn't even talk about movies. You guys just connected on something that you both sort of shared. And
I felt like that was a great in for that too, because if you've ever been in that situation, it's a lot. You know, that's why I said I had such mad respect for him, because I know what that's like. You know, you try so hard to get to that point and you try this, you try that, nothing seems to work, and you just feel like, well, this is going to be who I am for the rest of my days. And then when you finally find a way to do it and you're set on your path, and I guarantee you that's where he got. It was just like at some point he found the thing that worked and he said, I'm on this path, I'm going to stick to it. And it's not easy, man. You go through such withdrawals with certain things, especially depending on how you approach it. So, like I said, mad respect for him, and I wanted to let him know that. But again, I told, you know, I think I even said it's like all your movies. I know every single one of these things because I've seen. I could probably name off a ton right off the top of my head. And he knows what he's been in. I know what he's been in. Why not find a different hook, you know? Something else to talk to him about.
Right, and you know, that's my thing. It's just like with, and I'll just mention him now. It's like when we met Adam Green.
Yeah.
I kind of, you know, he is a perfect example of somebody making it on their own in the business. You know, he made Hatchet, and then he went on to do a bunch of other movies. He did Frozen, not the Disney Frozen.
No, not that one. Underrated gem if you haven't seen it.
Yep. The Morrow, which is another great film. He's done a lot of YouTube things. He, honestly, one of his YouTube shows is actually sort of something that I've gained some inspiration from for this show. And it's like called Scary Sleepover. But just an all-around, just nice guy. I felt kind of bad for him because he was at the con and it was like the 10-year anniversary of his friend passing away.
Yeah.
And then you find out that his first wife left him like the day after his friend passed away or whatever. And I'm like, that's just like you feel for the guy, but I mean, he was real down to earth. And I will say this right now, he was honest with us, which I appreciate. And he flat out said, he was like, yeah, guys, I would love to do your podcast. He said, but I will tell you, it'll probably be like when I'm promoting something, because that's when I am able to have the time to do podcast. At least he was honest about it. Like, you know, like I won't be on your podcast unless I'm promoting something, because it's just my schedule's so busy all the time. But he's a very talented guy. He's very, I think, underappreciated in the business.
Agreed.
He did a show called Holliston, which ended, and they would have liked to have kept going. His friend, who was also one of the actors in it, passed away. Show is a hidden gem, though, and it has a lot of horror icons in it. Two that I can think of right now, Kane Hodder was in it, and, oh gosh, Captain Spaulding.
Oh, hang on. I'll get there.
It's right in right there in the front of the brain. May he rest in peace.
Sid Haig.
There it is. There it is. Both of them are in it. And it's actually, Kane Hodder is doing some comedy in it, which is scary and funny all at the same time. But no, he was a joy to talk to. We didn't talk to him very long, but he was very forthcoming. He was very soft-spoken. Like, I don't know if you caught that vibe from him, but I feel like he's a very, like, soft-spoken kind of guy. And, again, one of those people that I just feel like you would, you could sit at the bar with, have a beer, or go get a burger with, and just chit-chat with.
Sure, yeah.
Like, and I love when celebrities are like that at these things because, again, we put them up on this pedestal, and it's okay to admire them, but you have to remember that they are just human beings like the rest of us. And I like when they're like that because that shows their humanity.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Was he one of the last ones we met? I'm trying to remember. I feel like he was close to the last.
I feel like it was because I think we had pretty much circled around because the first time we came to his table, he wasn't there. And then we came back around when he came back because we'd already circled several times. So I honestly think he was one of the last we chatted with.
That's what I thought. I will say this too. Enjoy the costumes that the people at these things wear because these people, they are labors of love. It's just like Comic-Con or any kind of like anime convention. People get in costume, people make costumes, and there were some badass costumes.
Mm-hmm.
And I know we've got some photos up on our social media of just some of the costumes, but if you actually go to the HorrorHound page on Facebook, you can see the costumes that the people, all the different people have. And I mean, some of that stuff is it's impressive.
Yeah. And by the way, if you happen to be one of those people who were in one of our photos and you want to be tagged in it, hit us up, DM us on social media so we can tag you. Because I would like to at least have you put in there where you belong.
Yeah. And I know anybody seeing Freddy out there, that's a good friend of mine that I'm glad Steven finally got to meet. He didn't get to meet him under the mask, but he got to meet him, and that's my friend Bill, who is probably one of the best Freddys I think I've ever had, the pleasure of knowing. He's definitely something else, I will say that. But yeah, Bill's just, he's probably the best Freddy impersonator. I think he might actually be partially Freddy. I don't know. But I'm glad that, I'm glad that you finally got the chance to at least meet him, and it was obviously in the most Bill way possible. You look down, you go, there's a Freddy down there. He comes up, and I'm like, can I get a picture, Mr. Krueger? And he's like, fuck you. Then, comes up and takes the selfie and then switches right back to Bill and goes, I didn't know you were going to be here. Where's the rest of the family? That's Bill for you, though.
Mm-hmm.
He has his own Facebook page now. He goes by the Nightmare Man. That was another character he actually created. And he made a Facebook page for it that he just put me on. And he already asked if I was coming to the next Horror Hound, which I will let people know. The next few Horror Hounds are actually going to be in Cincinnati. They normally do them in Cincinnati and Indianapolis, but Indianapolis is trying to find a change of venue because the convention is growing.
Gotcha.
So the next few ones are going to be at Cincinnati. The only person that I really wish would have been at this one, which I'm just going to say this real quick, I really wish Bruce Campbell would have been there.
Yeah, that would have been kind of a little cherry on top with the rest of them being there.
But I will say this, we have been to a con that he has been at. We couldn't even find him. They had him in a room all by himself.
Oh, damn.
Because there were so many people. They didn't even do that for Robert Englund.
Wow.
So apparently Bruce but this was obviously at the height of Ash versus Evil Dead.
Oh, okay.
So it was a hot commodity to meet Bruce Campbell, which it's funny because it shows how different my wife and I are with what we like, because I know him from Evil Dead. My wife knows him from Burn Notice.
Sure.
But she still, loves the guy to death. And I love when he does photo shoots, because what he tends to do is he'll pull the girl in close and he'll tell the girl, he'll be like, you come here. And then he'll push the guy back. And he's like, you stay over there. Which is the most Bruce Campbell thing, I think I've ever seen.
Lace showed me her picture with Bruce, and it was that very thing.
Yeah. I hear he's a lot of fun to meet, and I hear he's just a real down to earth, real nice guy. I always thought it would be funny, if Sam Raimi had never written Evil Dead. I feel like him and Bruce Campbell would still be friends, but I feel like they would own like a garage somewhere and they'd work on cars.
Sure.
Bruce Campbell would be the mechanic. Sam Raimi would be the manager. Ted would be helping out with the mechanic stuff, and Ivan would probably be writing all their ads. Yeah. That's the movie we need. They can be mechanics that work on the vehicles of supernatural entities. There we go.
Evil Dead Ride with a D.
I mean, it could work. What's wrong with my car? It's possessed.
Yeah. It's Christine, but with Deadites.
Read from this book. Make sure you don't mess up the words. It'll all work.
It'll be fine.
Bruce Campbell fucks it up and the car gets even worse. That'd be great.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I'm going to be excited to see who's at the next con. It'll be here before we know it. That's, I don't know if we will end up going to the next one. Just, I think it depends on where everything's at that point. But September is the next one, and they should start announcing people. I know that we're going to be meeting back up in August because we're going to be coming to Tennessee. So, going in September might be pushing it just a little bit. But no, I mean, I had a good time. I think the convention was a lot of fun. It never ceases to amaze me. There's always something that surprises me, or there's always something that I want, or I always have at least one good experience. I'm glad this year I didn't really have any bad experiences with any celebrities, because that does tend to happen. We did avoid certain celebrities, so.
We did.
But any other thoughts of yours on HorrorHound before we wrap up the show?
No, I just think that when there's a next time, I want to plan ahead a little bit more. Just for certain reasons, whether it be traveling that far or some other things, I want to plan a little bit better. But at least this was a nice way to feel it out, see what we can do and what we can't do, and then try to plan from there, I suppose.
Yeah, and I know that we've talked a little bit about, it might be fun to actually have a booth there and maybe sell some Horror Ramblings merchandise or something. I think it'd be a great way to get the show sort of out there. I think we could design some logos or something, and go from there. But
sure,
there's all kinds of possibilities with the con. That's the thing that I like about it. There's all kinds of possibilities to do different things, and like you said, it was a good way to kind of get a feel for everything and know like what the limits are with the press passes and what they're what's available. And it might be one of those things where we get press passes and we get VIP. In a dream world, I could just afford to buy the like platinum VIP, which gives you a room right there in the hotel that is connected to the convention center.
Sure. And
gives you a guaranteed parking spot and all that, and all the bonus stuff. But that's like $1,500, I think. So your hotel's included in that. Don't get me wrong, your hotel's included, but that's a pricey.
Yeah, that's
amount
a lot
to pay.
So you better be treated like a king,
right? Which I will say they do take pretty good care of their VIPs. So, but I don't have anything else as far as the con goes. So if you want to tell all those wonderful, wonderful horror fans out there where to find us.
Ramblers, have you been to HorrorHound? Were you there this year and you missed us? We said a lot of stuff about it on social media, so that's your fault. Anyway, let us know over on the social medias at Horror Ramblings. Tag us over there. Like I said, DM us if you're in any of those pictures so we can tag you there. If you want to send us an email, you can do that at horrorramblings@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group or join us on Discord. You can find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images like our trip at HorrorHound. You want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/pencilpaperproductions. Help the show grow over on your favorite podcasting app by giving us a 5-star review. You can just say, cool, man. That'll work. Tell your friends to do that as well. If you're on Spotify, see if we've posted up any questions and polls. Let us know what you think. And finally, you can find everything over at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes down below.
And remember, guys, stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.